Okay, so my space is getting towards enclosure, and that means it's got elements bounding all the different sides that I want, but the top's still open. And something you should always think about is getting your space completely enclosed before you focus in on the little details. It's much more important to get the overall set out right, especially for the exterior elements, than to get bogged down with the little details, because most of the time the little details are going to be based on those larger elements. And also, when those larger elements change, chances are you're going to need to change the smaller things as well. So that's a standard workflow with any design project. Get the big things sorted out first and get the whole model enclosed, and then focus in on the little details. I've put a few details in here, but not too many, because I do want to get it all enclosed first. So now I want to put the ceiling on. And to work with ceilings, you need to use a ceiling plan. Now in Revit, they're just called ceiling plans, but the proper name for them is a reflected ceiling plan. So if you haven't seen one before, you should watch what I'm about to show you. I'm going to open up the main bathroom level floor plan. And you can see there all of the things on the floor. But you'll see then below floor plans on the left here, I've got ceiling plans. And I've got most of the levels there. Notice I don't have ceiling. That's because I deleted it earlier. I'll just show you. It could still have been there, and I maybe will just make it again so that you can see what it looks like, because it can be a bit confusing. Okay, so first I'm going to open up the main bathroom level ceiling plan. Notice how I can see all of the things that are being cut. So remember, a plan is a horizontal section. So in this horizontal section, my walls, these solid walls and the curtain wall here, and the doors, they're all being cut. But notice how here I don't have the door opening that I can see in the main bathroom level floor plan. That's because the ceiling plan is cutting through higher than the floor plan does. You can change that, but you don't need to. I'm going to leave it as it is. So it's important to realise it's still a horizontal section, but it's looking up, not down. So I don't see any of the things on the floor, and well, I don't see anything inside those walls because I don't have anything above the point that it's cutting through. Now, a common mistake people make is to go to the level where they want to place their ceiling. So this 05 ceiling that I have is attached to that level, 05 ceiling. If I go to that ceiling plan, I'm not going to see anything at all. Looking in a elevation view, you can see why. Right, so this is my main bathroom level. So my ceiling plan was cutting through about here, through those walls and looking up. But the ceiling plan for this level is cutting through above it. So it's cutting through nothing, and then it's looking up to nothing. That's why there's nothing there. So in other words, it's useless. I'm going to delete it just by right-clicking, delete. So what you want to remember, when you're working with ceiling plans, it should be the plan or the level below the ceiling that you're trying to make, because you're looking up at it. Don't go to the level that the ceiling sits on. My ceiling is going to be a little bit below this one anyway. This is the existing ceiling level. I'm going to pop mine in, drop mine in just a little bit below that. Okay, so you need to draw the ceiling in a ceiling plan or you won't see it. Now notice how also the plan is oriented the same way as my floor plan. The bathroom level, main bathroom level floor plan has these two walls on the left-hand side. So it's not simply a horizontal section that's looking up, because that'd be a mirror image. Right? It's actually a reflected section. This is where it gets a bit confusing if you think about what you're actually doing, because really it's just like your floor plan. You start by drawing the walls the same as you do on a floor plan, but then you show the ceiling on the floor instead of the floor. Sounds crazy, but it's the most logical way of doing it. Until you do it, it won't make sense. But once you do it, you'll see it actually is the simplest way of doing it. So that's why it's called a reflected ceiling plan, because it's like you've got a mirror on your floor and you're seeing reflected on your floor whatever's on your ceiling. Right? So, and the reason it's simpler to draw is because you don't have to flip it over. You're not drawing a mirror image. You're drawing it the same way your floor plan faces, but instead of drawing whatever's on your floor, you just draw what's on your ceiling. It's actually much simpler to draw, even though it's more difficult to explain. It's simpler to draw because you don't have to draw the walls. What about lights? What about lights? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's not that hard in Revit. You've got lights in the library, but you need a ceiling there. If you haven't got a ceiling there, it won't let you put lights in.
Yeah, but you're saying that it's a mirror image, right? But if you don't have any walls, you just put the back wall and the side walls.
Yeah, but you'll still have a ceiling. So you've got to have something up there.
Right.
Otherwise, people are going to get rained on in the bathroom. So there's got to be something there.
Okay.
So I'm going to go to make a ceiling now. I'm in my ceiling plan, main bathroom level, and then on the home tab you can see you've got a ceiling button. Now they're not that hard to make as long as you remember to make them in a ceiling plan and you've got a basic understanding of what a ceiling plan is. So I'm going to click on ceiling, and you'll see that if I move my mouse into the space where I want my ceiling, it'll actually pick up the walls. You can see there, I haven't clicked anywhere. I'm just moving the mouse over the main bathroom area, and you can see the outline of all of my walls highlighted in red. Now, that can be okay in some situations, but I don't want that. I want a ceiling to go over this whole area, ignoring those extra walls I've put around the WC. So you can see on the ribbon, it's got this option, automatic ceiling selected. I'm going to go to sketch ceiling instead. And that's the option I'd recommend you use it first, just to get used to the way you make ceilings. Because when you use sketch ceiling, I'll just click on it, you'll see you get the same tools you have when you're making a floor. So it's no different to making a floor at this point. I've got exactly the same tools there. So I've got all my different shapes, and I've even got pick walls, just like you have when you're making a floor. So I'm going to click on pick walls, and I'm just going to go around picking the inside edge of all of the main walls of my space. Alright, so that has given the shape of my ceiling, but I need to do a few extra things. The height over here, you can see, is measured from the level that I'm working on. So it's measured from the main bathroom level, and then I've already put the height in because I did this before, but when you go to do it, it'll probably have something like that, or maybe even lower. So you need to set the height from the level that you're drawing on. So I want this to be 2900 above that level, because I know I've got that much room. If you have a look in my section, you'll see, okay, I've got 3 meters between the main bathroom level and the ceiling. I could put it up a bit higher, but I'm happy to have it 100 mil below the existing ceiling. It gives me a few options for modelling in some extra things. Okay, so now I'll just click the tick to finish the ceiling for now. But then you can see over here it's got compound ceiling plane selected. So you've got different ceiling types you can choose from that list. I'm going to leave it on the plain one for now. And I'll just go to show you in the 3D view. This one. You can see I've got a ceiling above the space. So if you've got a simple solid ceiling, if you're not doing a glass roof or anything like that, that's really all you'll need to do. But a couple of things you can do to make it look a bit neater might be to attach any walls. The reason I didn't want the ceiling to go around these walls is because these walls aren't structural. So I want them to just stop at the ceiling. So I've selected both of them, and I'm just going to click Attach Top Base, and then I'll select my ceiling. So now they stop there. And that's quite common for interior walls, to have them finishing at your ceiling. Okay, so that's a simple ceiling, but I'm going to make it into a more complex one now, because I know a lot of you want glass roof or openings in your ceiling. Yeah, I'm going to do a bulkhead also, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to select my ceiling, and then back in the main bathroom level ceiling plan, again you can see it because I'm looking up at it now. Just to prove that to you, I'll deselect it, and you can see I can only see it now because I've got shaded with edges. If it's on hidden line, you probably won't see anything. So someone was saying, you know, what if it's a blank ceiling? You won't see anything, and that's quite right. You won't see it if it's a plain ceiling and you've got a hidden line view. But in a shaded view, like shaded with edges, you should see something. But to select it here is quite difficult. You can, if you want to have a go at using tab here, you'll see that you can actually get to it in this view, or you can go to a 3D view and select it there and then come back to this view. So I've got my ceiling selected. Now I'm going to click Edit Boundary. And I want to make this into a glass roof, essentially. I'm going to use the ceiling tool. I'm not going to use the roof tool because it is a simple plane. I'm not going to put in a realistic slope or anything. I'm going to keep it fairly simple. So I'm going to use Pick Walls again. And I want it to go around this area here. That's where my bulkhead's going to go. So I'm going to pick those walls. Now it's gone onto the wrong side. That's okay. I can flip it using the arrow, and I'll pick the other wall as well. And now I can use Trim and join all of these lines together. So I've got, again, a closed shape. But now I also want to make it a glass roof. So I'm going to click Edit Type. And I'm going to duplicate this plain ceiling. So I'll call it glass panel. And then just clicking on the preview there, you can see that hasn't changed it, giving it a new name. It's still just as it was before. So I'm going to click Edit Structure, or Edit Next to Structure, and you can see here I've got these two components. I don't need the plasterboard one at all, so I'm going to delete that whole component, and I'm going to change the one that's left between my two core boundaries to glass just by clicking into the material slot and then browse. You'll see in the list of materials here I've got a glass material, and that one's fine. I'll just the only thing I've changed there is the shading here. I've ticked Use Render Appearance for shading. Right, so that's it. I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to change the thickness there just to 20 mil. That's probably still thicker than it would be in reality, but it should show up the way I want it to on the drawings. So that's it. I click OK, and I've got a simple glass panel. Tick will finish it, and it's going to tell me the highlighted walls are attached to but missed the target because I've moved my ceiling outside of those walls. That's okay. I don't want them to be attached anymore. So I'm going to click Detach Targets. And then back in my 3D view, you can see I've got a glass panel going over the majority of the space. So that's okay. You probably get away with that for concept presentations, but it's really not acceptable for a professional presentation. So I'm going to show you how you can put framing in there that'll make it look much better, and also it'll be a design element. So I'll do that in a moment. But first I want to put a bulkhead in above the little area where the WC is. So I'm going to go back to my main bathroom level ceiling plan, and I'm going to make another ceiling. So again, I don't want automatic ceiling. I'm going to use sketch ceiling, and I'm going to pick use Pick Walls, and then pick the inside of these walls here going around the WC. That one's gone to the wrong side, so I'll flip it. And here. So notice how I'm going onto the inside of the walls because this is a bulkhead. I want it drop down inside my walls. I don't want it sitting on top of these walls. So that's as far as I can go with pick walls. I can't get this edge or even the end of this wall here with pick walls because you can only pick a wall once with pick walls. So I can't pick this wall twice to get that edge. Alright, so I'm going to use trim just to join the lines I have together. And I've got to use another approach to get the rest done. So I'm going to just use the regular line tool and draw in those extra lines. Again, it might be hard to see, but those aren't quite touching, so I'm going to use trim to join them together. So that will work as a ceiling. It's a closed shape. Alright, so hopefully you can see from that, when you're working in sketch mode, pick walls is good, but you've got all these other shapes there for a reason. You can draw any 2D shape you like. So now I need to make my bulkhead. So I want it to drop down below my glass panel. So I'm going to make the height offset from level here 2700. And then again, I'm going to click Edit Type. And I want this to be fairly thick, so I'm going to click again Duplicate. I'm going to call it Bulkhead. But I'm going to put the size in as well, 300. So to make it 300, I'm going to click Edit next to Structure. Now, for the sort of presentation you'll be doing, you don't really need to show all of this detail. So I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to delete this component, but notice how when it's selected, this here is the structure, it's the stud layer. So they're the ceiling joists, basically. I can't delete it. And that's because you need to have something between the core boundaries. So I'm going to select the plasterboard, and that's the one I want to keep. I'm going to move that up, so now it's inside my core boundaries. And now you see I can delete my stud layer, because I've got one left inside my core boundaries. And it's got the material I want, plasterboard, that's why I kept this one. And I'm just going to make the thickness there 300. Nothing wrong with that for a simplified ceiling or any other component that you want to make. You don't always need to have multiple components. It can actually make things much easier to work with as well. So now I'm going to click OK. OK. Finish on the ribbon. And you can see now, we can actually see that outline in the plan, but in the 3D view, it's even clearer. So I've got a bulkhead dropping down inside that area there. So that should work pretty well. I might, you could refine that detail, but that's probably okay for now. Okay, so the last thing would be to put the framing in. So I'll just quickly show you that. It might sound complicated, but it's actually just using, I'm going to use the same method that I've shown you already to make custom families using model in place under component. I'm going to draw a series of boxes essentially, and that's all the ceiling joists would be. Okay, so with model in place, you'll see firstly it's going to ask you for a category. Now here casework is going to work just fine, so I'm going to click OK. Oh, sorry, what am I saying? Ceilings will work even better. Casework would be okay actually, but ceilings, sorry, is the one I mean. So yeah, ceilings is the category, obviously, that we should be using here. And I'm going to call it ceiling joists, or just joists actually, because they're really not just ceiling joists, they're also holding up the roof. So I'll just call it joists. Okay, so now I need to make an extrusion. So I'm just going to click on extrusion, and here you'll see it's going to ask me to pick a plane or to choose a work plane. I'm simply going to use the same level that I'm already working on. So nothing too confusing about that actually. You can see over here in the project browser, I'm drawing on the main bathroom level. So why not measure from there? So I'm going to choose that level from the list, click OK, and now I'm going to draw my shapes. So I'm simply going to draw a rectangle, snapping to the corners of my walls. And then I'm going to come back, I'm just going to press escape a couple of times so I can come back and select this line on the right and make the dimension there 50. Okay, so now here's where you've got to remember the dimensions I used before. The ceiling that I made for the glass panel is sitting at 2900. So remember, that's the height I put in for the ceiling. So for these joists to reach the underside of that, that's where they need to finish. So that's the extrusion end, 2900. And I want the joist to be 100 by 50. I've already made it 100 wide. So I've made it 50 wide, and I want it to be 100 deep. So they'd start 100 mil below where they end. So the start is 2800. So that means the finished depth of this joist will be 100 mil if it's going from 2800 to 2900. Okay, so I'm just going to check the material there. And even though it doesn't have a very good name, this material that I've got for the steps is going to work fine for the joists as well. So I'm just going to leave that for now. But I'm not going to finish it yet. So the next thing I'm going to show you is kind of a trick. It's not the best way of making lots of solids, so don't fall into the habit of using this method always, but in this situation it's going to work fine. I want a lot of joists. So before finishing my sketch, I'm going to select that whole rectangle just by making a window around it, and I'm going to use copy and take it across 600 mil. That's fine as a spacing for joists. Now I'm going to select two of them, and you're probably thinking, well, why not use array? It's because I want to make some changes as I go along, so that's why I'm using copy instead of array. Okay, so with those selected, I'm going to click on copy and take this across 1200, 2 times 600, because I'm copying two of them. Now I can select 4 of them, and then again copy, and this time 2400. So it's not much slower than using array. Now I can simply use a line to bring these edges. So I'm just going to select multiple alignment, choose my wall, and then I can bring all of these edges up. And now I can go on and copy these. So I'll do it in groups of 3 this time. So 3 times 600 is 1800. And I'll do 4 again. So 2400. And I just need one more now at the end. So I'll just select the last one there, and I'll copy it across by snapping to its corner and then snap that to the corner of the wall. So it's just a series of rectangles, but they're all closed, so they'll work as a solid. So I'm going to finish that now, and you'll see in the 3D view I've got ceiling joists under my glass. And notice how they connect into the bulkhead as well because of the heights I used. So there's nothing really complicated about that modelling. It's just a matter of getting your heights and your dimensions right. So I'm going to finish that model now, and you can see there I've got my finished ceiling joint. So last thing I'll do there is just make a quick 3D view there so you can see how this is coming together in perspective. So we're going to go back to the main bathroom level, and then using the shortcut there, I'm going to make a camera view. I'm just going to click a point near the entry and take that right through to the end of the space.
So the end should be outside the building.
Sorry?
The end of the camera should be outside the building.
Yeah, that'll work fine. You want it to encompass everything. So yeah, if it's outside, that's fine. Okay, so you can see how in perspective that makes the space look much more interesting, having that little bit of extra detail. If it's just a plain glass panel, it looks a bit uninteresting. And also, once you put the lighting in, that'll make a big difference to the finished product as well. So I'll just make this view a little bit bigger, just using the border there. I can stretch the sides out. Maybe you can bring this up a bit to pick up that bulkhead. Don't want to go too far with this. Notice how it's starting to be a bit distorted on the sides, but still that should work okay. So, you know, you've done all these things before, making camera views, making in-place families, but it's just putting it all together and thinking about how you can use it creatively to get the finished product that you're after. So I'm just going to do a quick render of that, and you'll see, even on draft it'll look okay, but I'll put it to low, which isn't much better, but still a little bit better than draft. So it should render relatively quickly on this computer, even though I've got a few programs open. So this is what you want to be working towards for your final presentations. You need to get the rendered views looking presentable. Okay, so even though I really want to change my sun position, as it is, the fact that I've got that extra detail in there makes a lot of difference to the lighting as well. So just think about those things when you're putting your finished product together. And you can work towards that anyway. So don't worry if not all of those things seem easy to you. You've got the video there to refer back to. So I'll just finish that one there.